All right. Well, looks like it's straight up 6 bells. We're here. Welcome to the first ever Triple T Talk Time with TJ. Thank you guys for showing up.
Thank you for having it.
Yeah, thank you for having us, TJ.
Well,
So excited.
it's amazing how much advice I can give people that I need to use myself. Finally,
Isn't that always the case?
I'm like, maybe I should follow some of my own advice. Yeah, what a concept. So, here we are. I was going to have this open forum for a bit, but you know how you get those downloads and stuff. I had a client I was working with today, and I asked him, just like I'd asked a couple other clients, who do you want to be in 23? And when I started thinking about that afterwards, I started thinking, here we are, New Year's Eve, and everybody's got all this, beautiful, what's your resolution? What's your resolution? And I started wondering, like I told my client, why is it got to be New Year's Day? What's so special about New Year's Day that everybody wants to try and change their life and go on a whole new platform, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to quit smoking, and I'm going to lose weight, and I'm going to blah, blah, blah. What about all the other special days, like Tuesday, Thursday? And what it came down when I start asking people, especially clients, when they come to me for things like smoke cessation, or I want to lose weight, or I want to become this, I start drilling down to, why is that important to you? What about that is important? And I know you guys well enough to know that you recognize values and criteria elicitation. And sometimes we forget to ask ourselves, right back to it's so easy to give advice until you post it up on the mirror and go, oh, yeah, that kind of fits here. So my question for all of us is, who do you want to be in 23? I started thinking about that. I reflected on my last 365 days. Holy balls. As you guys know, my life's been woo, hang on, yeehaw, and all the above. So, being I've survived that, I started thinking about, okay, I've been talking about doing trainings, and I've been talking about a lot of stuff. I've been pushing a lot of people for this and that. And out of curiosity, I think all of you have been through Golden Path, right?
Yes.
Okay. One.
No.
Okay. If you could boil Golden Path down to its basic, simplest, it would basically be, look back at your life and all the things that you have done up to this point, and what do they have in common? Hold on, got a few other people trying to get on. What are some of the things you guys have come up with when you start looking at what would be considered your golden path? What do they have in common? And where, if you could simply let go of the reins and let life run down the path that's been going on, where could you see yourself possibly in a year? Because I guarantee you, a year ago, I did not see myself in Texas. 2 years ago, I did not see myself married. Holy balls, did not. So, you know, but I think part of that, for those of you that know me, I got pretty relaxed on the reins. I stopped thinking that I knew where I was going. I just said, screw it. Where am I going to end up? Yeehaw.
Can you repeat that again? Because it froze right. You said.
Yeah.
Oh, of course it did.
So we didn't hear it.
Yeah. I said, I basically, when I look back and tried to figure out how I got here, I realized I kind of let go of the reins and just said, like I thought I had it in, you know, like I thought I had it figured out anyway. And a few of you know, when I the download that I got for when I was going to get married happened at a training. I hadn't even really thought about it until I'm at a training. David's going over the upcoming schedule, and the training for January just happened to, I rarely looked at them anyway. It got to the point where it was like every month I'm doing something. People are like, what's the training next month? I'm like, I just got to show up and do shit. I have no idea. But I was glossing over it and saw the January training, and for some reason, bing! January 23rd, 21 popped up in my head. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. And before I could even analyze it, my head said, oh, that's the day we're getting married. And I was like, holy shit. That's the day I'm getting married. Wow. David, I can't work on that day. We're going to have to reschedule. And of course, you know, in his loving way, he gave me that look of like, what? Well, we'll talk about that later. But so back to the concept of this upcoming year, especially seeing as how the 2020s have been such a ride for the whole world. What would you like to let go of, and where would you like to go forward to? And then understanding values and criteria. How can we work together and help each other to drill down to how we can get there? Because the better we get at this, the more we're going to be able to help the people around us, especially potential clients. Now, I know a couple of you had talked about doing more client work. And values and criteria elicitation is huge when working with clients. Which leads me right to the next squirrel. So if you guys have any questions on what I've covered so far, let me know now.
So you mentioned values and criteria, and I love your questions, and I actually wrote them down because you said, who do you want to be in 2022? In other words, 2022, the entire year, so that when you look at 2023, looking back, you can say, this is who I was, right? Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, actually the question is, who do you want to be in 23? You've got 300 and some odd days now to figure out how do I get to that point?
Okay.
And then in doing so, figuring out how hard do I have to hold on to the reins,
Yeah.
or do I put those coordinates in, and who do I put on my team to help me get there?
So these are, I think, exquisite questions because I've been spending quite a bit of time over the holidays, especially the last week since Christmas, because finally you've got the big hiatus of Christmas and then just New Year's. But you've got some downtime. I don't have any clients and so forth, and so I spend a lot of time in meditation and breath work. And one of the things that I've learned with manifesting is, and I'm a pretty good, pretty magical manifester, but still I have certain things that I haven't manifested, like we all do, because we're always growing and expanding. And there's certain things that I've manifested like crazy fast that don't make any sense. And that same thing right now is taking me a longer time to do. So I also recognize that in manifesting, that if you keep on going to putting your energy and your conscious focus on it too much, and you don't walk away from it, and it's always on your top of the mind awareness, then you have it so tacked down on the earth plane that it can't bubble up and rematerialize to come back and reform into whatever your wanted is.
Right.
So I know Vadim Zeeland would say that that's an excess potential. It's basically excess energy. You're kind of wasting it because you need to take your attention off of it because it's done. Once you put it in 5D, then there's no need to even revisit it. It's done. And so that kind of goes hand in hand with what you said about how as soon as you saw the date 01/23/21, you knew that it wasn't a mindful left brain thought. Your first hit, your subconscious, your intuitive hit was, that's the day I'm getting married, but you didn't think it. It was your intuition that bubbled up. So all of this stuff really, I think one of the common denominators, although, we haven't all spoken here, but I think that the common denominator is paying attention to that, your subconscious and your intuitive hit that's trying to tell you and give you the fastest course corrections to get what it is that you want, so that you get there as quickly as possible. So I think letting go of trying, I'm guilty. I call myself a recovering. I'd like to say I'm a recovered, and I'm way better than I was before, but I'm a recovering A personality type. I like to plan a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things I like to do. I like to categorize. I like to short-term, mid-term, long-term. You get the picture, right? Mm-hmm. And so letting all of that go and still having all these things that I really have a heart's desire, where it's like I really know what I want, and then not obsessing too much and not putting too much excess potential into it, and just saying, just relaxing and letting go a little bit more, and just the theme of having more fun seems to be coming up all the time, which I think I'm way better at, but apparently I'm not good enough at it, because like just today, it's like I got hammered with that a couple more times again. It's like how important, and I know like David talks about, in order to increase your IQ and to learn faster, you have to have more fun. And I feel like I'm having fun all the time, but apparently I'm supposed to kick that up a notch even more. So if you have suggestions and ideas, I'm all ears.
Well, that leads me right into the next deal that I had on there, is the importance of labels. with my last client especially, it goes with the understanding of nothing means anything until we give it a label. The problem is we are so programmed to stick with the very first label that pops up. And we put importance on what that label means in regards to that. And one of the best examples of this that I found that really hit me as an aha was a podcast about medical sciences now are going back and they're looking at a lot of the medicines and things, protocols that they've been using over the years. And the gentleman putting on the podcast said, it's like the saying, I found it in the last place I looked. We've all heard that, of course. And if you're looking for your keys and you find them and you keep looking, we have meds for that. But the problem is when you're looking for solutions and answers, and especially when you're dealing with labels, if you stop at the first place you find the solution, how do you know that you wouldn't have found better answers had you kept looking? And that's why I'm always a proponent and always asking, especially my clients, is what else could it be? Give me at least 3 answers. And in doing so, pushing them to keep looking for an answer even though they've already found an answer. A lot of times, the first answer they came up with, okay, that's one. What's another one? When they come up with number 2 and number 3, those 3 answers may not even be the correct answer. But in looking at the 3, all of a sudden, the 4th pops up. The cumulative of the 3 answers provides an overview and the aha moment. And I've seen it way too many times to rule it out. It's just, it's the same as the number of headaches that I've magically cured. Where, I'll see somebody and I'm like, what's wrong? Oh, I got a headache. I'm like, okay, is it yours or is it somebody else's? Like an energy spider web that you've walked through. And getting them to question it is the first step in the cure. And they're like, what? I'm like, ask your subconscious, is this headache yours or is it somebody else's? Regardless of what they come up with, I go, okay, so instead of a headache, what else could it be? And all of a sudden you'll see them, they start analyzing. They'll be like, well, I didn't get much sleep last night. I'm like, okay, it could be fatigue. What else could it be? Well, I didn't drink very much today. Could be dehydration. What else could it be? I didn't eat much last night. Could be low blood sugar. Now that you've looked at those, what do you notice about your headache? About 70% of the time, they're like, either it's greatly reduced or it's gone. It was because of the label that they gave it immediately that they went, oh, something's not right. I think I've got a headache. And their head goes, we got a headache. Well, shit. How good is that? We've got a headache. You were right. And then you start getting them to question it, and all of a sudden their subconscious is going, well, maybe it wasn't a headache. Maybe, oh, shit, we were really busy yesterday. We didn't drink, we didn't eat, we didn't sleep for shit. We don't have a headache. We're tired and we need something in our gut. Come on. Grab a bottle of water and a protein bar or something, and let's move on. the same thing happens so often with people's identity with problems. I have a problem because I blank. I am this because of blank. I am is the identity. Because of is oftentimes labels. And when you start pushing into what does that label mean to you? When they start trying to define the label, and I'm like, I don't want to hear about the dictionary definition of the word. What does that label mean to you, especially in reference to the issue that you're trying to overcome? In doing so, a lot of times they'll understand that they made that label up. What other words could you use? And again, when they start relabeling these foundational bricks for their argument of why they are what they are, or why they can't do something, or what's holding them back, oftentimes that foundation will crumble right there. You utilize basically the same thing for people's, again, circle back to resolutions for the New Year's. Why is that important to you? What does that mean to you? And you dig down until you find the reason that will make them do it. Right now, just even with all the stuff going on, I guarantee you that the workout centers and gyms and fitness coaching business is on a roll. Yes, the first month of the year, and every gym is packed with people that want to get better shape, and then they're like, I got better shit to do. Because they didn't drill down to why is it important? What is it that's going to keep you going? And what do those labels mean to you? And I'm preaching from experience. Been here at this place long enough now. I got to get back into my workout routine. I've told myself that every morning while my wife goes upstairs to work out. I'm like, hey, and I got to get my gym clothes on and get my butt up there and work out pretty soon.
I think you've touched on something very important there, TJ, and it's really creating that why. Why is it important to you?
Yes.
And having that strong why.
And the why has to be built of foundational blocks that are strong enough to support doing it. It's just like when people come to me and they want to quit smoking, and I ask them, well, why do you want to quit smoking? And if they don't give me a strong enough reason, I'm like, that's not strong enough. Keep smoking. Well,
no, you have to create.
What's that?
Yeah. You have to create a pull.
Yeah.
Like basically, if it's a push, you'll stop doing it in a very short period of time.
Correct.
If you're being pulled towards it, and that's why that why is so critically important.
Yep. Which puts us right back to, who do you want to be in 23? What do you want to see for accomplishments? And are you willing, A, to do the work, but B, to be flexible enough for what the universe has, shall we say, instead, or along the way? What I consider probably one of the saddest ones is the people who haven't changed at all. I go back to my little village in Minnesota, and there are still some people. I can go down to the liquor store on Friday night, and I know which bar stool is going to have the same person telling the same story, drinking the same drink. They've been on autopilot for 40 flippin' ass years. And I'm not judging them for that, because if that's all they want out of life, they've achieved it. Woohoo! Yes, you haven't changed a damn bit in 40 years. But I don't think we're those kind of people, because I guarantee you that person won't be on one of these. They think that this whole stuff is a whole lot of hoop-de-doo, and why would you want to change when you can live in a town of 187 people where everybody knows your name, and I don't have to order when I walk into the bar. The drink is already sitting there. Yeah.
So you know that provokes in me the question, what things am I addicted to? What things? Because if I have to be certain about, a particular thing, then maybe asking the question why, what's important to me about that particular thing that creates that need, and is it valid for me to continue wanting that, or is it just because the neurological pathways of the brain have been engrooved there so long and they're there by default, and I can choose to leave them there? Or now with this new awareness, I can decide, you know what, that's the past, and I want to forge new neurological pathways, and that was important before, but now not so much. Now I choose a different, maybe certainty. I'm going to maybe trade it out for adventure and for the unknown and for maybe greater expanded possibilities. And how can I do that in such a way that I'll have fun, it can be profitable, and still maybe give me just enough certainty so I don't feel diskiltered.
Yes.
So my question for you would be, is everybody's got a primary question. We ask ourselves all the time, every situation. So what's your primary question, and is that holding you back from accomplishing what it is you want to accomplish? So if you stop and think about that, there's a question that you always ask yourself. So an example of that for me, like in work, and you do it in every aspect of your life, but especially in work, I used to ask myself, what could possibly go wrong with this job, and what do I need? What structures do I need to put in place so that doesn't happen? So that can be very serving, but it can be also very unserving. Like it can be very detrimental to me. Like get into a relationship, what could possibly go wrong in this relationship? They're sabotaging you, right? So you need to change your primary question to something that's more serving to you, right?
Ask a better question.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the favorite ones that I always did was, what's the worst case scenario, and does it include you dying? Are you going to die?
Okay.
Now, if it's if like, well, I want to be the first person to jump out of a plane without a parachute. What's the worst case scenario? Do you die? Probably. Then we'll pass on that. But a lot of the stuff that, sometimes I look at my life and I'm like, holy balls, how did I get here? I think I've lived probably 12 lifetimes, and I know that there's a couple other people on here as well that can probably say the same thing, that woo, yeah. But then again, look what I look right back to what I said in the last 360 some days. Ding ding bum 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 ding poop. Holy shit, I'm in Texas. What? And so when it comes to certainty, what level of certainty do you need to have to be able to survive and not die, but still be comfortable enough in the rodeo to get on and go, you know what? Well, I'm going to try this out. And when things show up, when you start asking yourself, what am I willing to do versus what am I not willing to do? And why is that important? What do I consider playing the safe game? And what has it allowed me to do, and what has it kept me from becoming? One really good process that I heard about was basically the yes/no chart of, I'm thinking about doing this. Well, if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? If I say no to this, what am I saying yes to? And you start going down the line of, is it worth saying yes to it for what I'm going to have to walk away from? For instance, for us to come from Cali out to here, if we say yes to moving to Texas, what are we saying no to? Well, for one, the killer weather. God, I'm missing it today. If we say no to it, what are we saying yes to? Higher gas prices, communism. Politics is what I meant. I'm sorry, but you start looking at, and it's the standard balance wheel, but when you look at it in a different label of the yes and no versus pros and cons, it's easy to list pros and cons, but when you have to take the pros or the con and say, okay, so if I'm saying yes to this one, what else am I saying no to? Does that make sense? Because I see a couple of faces like, really?
Okay, so that makes sense to me, because I think obviously, especially, if you're doing a geographical move, you're moving your entire life to an entire different spot on the planet. That's obviously a big deal. There's a huge energy shift, an energy that needs to be expended to pull that off, and then where you land, it's a major change. So then I think the question, and obviously if you're doing a big change like that, because it sounds like obviously a year ago, 2 years ago, you never envisioned yourself. It wasn't part of your vision board or your inner wants to manifest a move to Texas, but somehow a door opened, an opportunity opened, something happened that spurred that move. So, and I think that's part of, we have all heard the saying, we make plans and then God laughs.
Yes.
And I think there's some truth, there's not just some truth, there's a lot of truth to that, but God's not going to steer a parked car. You got to move your car. You got to have to decide, I'm going to go in this direction. And then you have to be willing to pay attention to your intuition or your subconscious hits that tells you, oh, you know what? When I left, I thought I was going to go left, but now that I'm here and I'm moving forward, I realize I got to go right. So you have to have that fluidity where you go with the flow.
Jordan Peterson, there was a little blurb or video clip of him talking, and he hit it really interesting. He goes, if you're thinking of doing something, especially young people, but at any age, if you're thinking of doing something, do it. And here's why, because while you're on that path, you may be about halfway down the path and go, you know what, this ain't it. But when you look over at that path, all of a sudden you're seeing that path from a different angle that you never would have if you would have stayed back there, which allows you to skip over to that path much easier. And it resonated with me big time, because I may or may not have done that, like a whole shit ton of times in my life. Like, I should try that. And that's why I'm on profession 28, because I was never afraid to try something different and new. And yeah, there were plenty of times where I was like, yeah, this pretty much blows. But in doing so, it set me up for a lateral jump instead of a forward jump. And that's when Lillian looked at my, for the Golden Pass, she looked at my Lillian Bridges, looked at my path on the Golden Path workshop. She was like, "Oh, you're one of those." I was like, "Coming from you, I'm not quite sure how to take that, but talk to me." And she goes, "You're adventurous and get bored easily, but in the end, you just want to help people." And that was it right there. Pretty much every type of job that I've had was some way to help people or fix problems. And then I ended up here, and now I get to pull from 28 different professions and put together metaphors and analogies and ideas and stuff that I don't think, I don't want to undercut, but I think it would be more of a challenge for somebody who jumped into the single profession and went straight forward. They would still be a good practitioner, but I don't think that they would be able to be intimate enough with the analogies and metaphors for clients.
You have a greater degree of perspectives because you've walked the different shoes of 27 additional professions that give you those. It's kind of like a disco ball. You have instead of just one of the little mirrors, you have 27, and now you have the 28th one. So you have a lot of little mirrors that you can reflect back on, that people now, that's 27 other perspectives that you can relate and connect with people who know that because you've been a bartender, because you've done, those 27 things, they're like, yeah, you get it. You get where I'm coming from.
Yep.
So you can probably deeper faster than someone who might just have some sort of a notion because their brother, mother, father, sister, cousin is that profession.
And that's also why I push people to not be so afraid to try something different. When you look at some of, like my mother is finally realizing that she can start a new chapter at 74. But the problem that she had was she had been in the elder care assisted living industry since 84.
Wow.
And a year ago, when she came out to Cali to live with Tina and I so that she could attend our wedding, she was there for 4 months.
Nice.
When she moved out there, She arrived as a 74-year-old with a 94-year-old brain because she had been hanging around with elderly people who were fragile. And she had so many limiting beliefs that it just broke my heart. She was afraid to eat certain things because, well, some of them are choke hazards, honey, you know, and we got to watch those. And, you know, then there's, you know, it's got a little snap to it. I get a little heartburn and all of this stuff. And she couldn't walk up and down our driveway more than once without being winded. And so I asked her, you know, I drilled down. Why is it important for you to be a 94-year-old locked in a 74-year-old body? She was like, what? And I said, understand, you've picked up and been around and gotten the mindset of the elderly who were fragile. You didn't hang around the 80, 90-year-old people who were active and sharp and living on their own and independent. You were around the ones who needed a lot of help. That will wire your mind as to what you're capable of. And being around Tina and I, it took her 4 months to realize that she was 74, not 94. And one of the best things that happened to me when I lost all of my stuff in Minnesota in '07 was when I ended up in San Diego. The first year I was in complete survival mode. I was sleeping in a garage. I finally saved up enough money to rent an unfinished basement in a lady's house way out in the boondocks. And I was working at an apartment complex and didn't realize how drastically underpaid I was for the industry in San Diego. I didn't care. I was getting a paycheck. But I scared the shit out of them and they finally got rid of me, which thank God. And I started taking care of college rental houses and ended up living in one for 5 years with 7 college kids, with a revolving door of college kids going in and out. And I forgot my age. I became 25 with a lot of experience. And again, that helped me understand a lot of what they're going through, but it also helped me understand being in the right mindset, being around the right people of the right mindset is huge. One of the things that David said was, you know, if somebody comes to you and tells you that they want to make a lot more money than they're making right now, move. Move to a place where people make a lot more money. Move to a more expensive neighborhood. Because in doing so, it's going to push you to make that kind of money, but being around the people that are making that kind of money also affects you. That's why there's so many there are so many people that can tell you, show me your 5 friends and I'll show you who you're going to be and who you are. Identity by association. So again, who do you want to be in 23? Seeming like this is obviously the theme for this discussion. When you start looking at the 5 people that you hang around with, what do they have in common with you, and what would it take for you to move out of that and move forward? Where do you find 3 to 5, 6, whatever, new people that can raise the bar and push you further? I've got one client that young man and likes to work at restaurants, wait staff. And I said, okay, so what restaurant you looking at? And he was like, oh, I kind of like Buffalo Wild Wings. I'm like, okay, they need waiters. I said, but who do you want to be in 23? Who do you want to be beyond? What kind of car do you want to drive? Where would you like to live? I said, I'm going to challenge you. I want you to go, and he lives in LA. I said, I want you to go to a very high ticket plate ticket restaurant. Dress up nice, because you're going to be waiting for a date to meet you. You're not going to meet a date there because that will distract you. I said, you're going to meet a date there, get a table for 2, order a drink, and then watch the people. Watch the clientele, watch the wait staff. Notice the energy in the place, watch how the wait staff act. When you're done with your drink, you've gotten the information you were looking for. Then you just got a message, she got sick, blah, 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 whatever, and walk around to the back of the restaurant and look at the back of the restaurant and the employees' cars. And then ask yourself, is it better or worse than Buffalo Wild Wings? What's the work environment like? How stressful is it? And while you were sitting there with that drink and you reflect on your life, what did you notice? What was the change while you were sitting there around that energy, those people that can afford to come out there on a Thursday, Friday night and drop $300-400, for a couple to have supper. And yes, your drink is going to cost you $30. Don't think about the drink costing you the $30. It's a $30 investment into studying the people that are living in a different mindset. The only difference between them and you is mindset. And so he finally picked out a place, and I said, when you do that, also look around for who could be a potential friend, a mentor, somebody you could hang out with. Even if you don't know them, you'll recognize their energy. Watch how they treat the wait staff. Because there'll be people that have mucho money that are just like broke people, and they're complete assholes to wait staff. And then there are people who have mucho money, and they're very kind, they're very generous, they are understanding. And notice how that interaction goes. As much as we like to bag on T. Harv Eker, I got that from him. It's not the money, it's not the people. There are wealthy assholes but there are a lot more very nice, very giving, very, they want to help people all the time. So there's another inset of who do you want to be in 23?
Money, the more money you make, it just magnifies more who you already are.
I've said that all the time.
If you are a kind and generous and a nice person, then you're just a kind and more generous, nice person the more money you have.
Exactly.
You're an asshole when you started making money and didn't have any. And when you have a lot of money, you're a bigger asshole.
Yes.
It's pretty, pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
I want to share something that happened recently to me that I think it falls in line with what you just shared, because over the holidays, I went to this little place in Newport Beach called Little Bottle Works. And I kind of scoped the place out in anticipation of going to see the Newport Beach, basically the last boat parade. So I went there I rode my bike down there and I went there for lunch. And so I ended up having, I think their special was a leek soup. So I had a leek soup and a coffee. So my bill wasn't particularly big, for lunchtime. I think it was a $15 bill, not much at all. But I noticed that and I sat at the bar, not at a table. And so I talked to the bartender, but the waitress kind of was very dismissive of me, seeing that it was kind of a small, tab, so to speak. And I could tell that she pretty much just brought me the soup, and then she basically didn't tend to me at all. Whereas the bartender was very engaging. He made sure that I had enough water, if I needed refills and so forth. He really behaved like my waiter, and she did not. So when it came time to pay for the bill, I took note of that. And so my bill was only, like I said, it was $13 or $15. So I took note of that. So when it came time to pay the bill, I went ahead and I added 15% to the bill, which was obviously not very much. It's just a few dollars. It was on $15, it's $3 is 20%. So that's all the tip that she got. To the bartender, I gave him a $20 tip, which far exceeded my meal. It far exceeded the tip that I was going to give her. Had she behaved appropriately, the way he had treated me, I would have given her that tip. And I paid it to him in cash, whereas I paid her tip on my credit card statement. So I paid for that, and then I took the cash and I said, Barrington, here, this is for you because you took good care of me. And then I said, I will be back. I'm going to bring a group of friends to see the boat parade tomorrow night. But thank you for, it was a wonderful interaction and blah, blah, blah. But you just don't know. But at the same time, it's the energy that people emit. And so I just wanted to share that with you, because sometimes people will dismiss certain people because they think, oh, you're not spending that much on, it could be a car, it could be a meal, it doesn't matter. You just don't know. Oftentimes, some of the wealthiest people that I've known aren't really flamboyant about it until the time comes that the money needs to come out, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I had no idea that this person had this kind of capacity or this amount of generosity.
Have you heard of the book The Millionaire Next Door?
Oh yeah, I had the paperback and I also listened to the audio over and over again.
When I was doing restaurant and bar consultation and training wait staff, bartenders, all that stuff, I referenced that one a lot. I said, if somebody comes in and all they want is a glass of water, you treat them like they last night tipped you $300. And here's why. Exactly what you touched on. Because sometimes they're in to scope a place to see if that's where they want to bring their friends. Sometimes they're just not in the mood for it. They're waiting for somebody and plans fall through. And it's the same with everything else in life. You know, we're really good at prejudging and trying to figure out the story. But in the end, how many times have we been surprised? Yes, we've all been burned. Because we're human. We're still alive. Yes, we've been burned. But go ahead.
One of the things that, just to backtrack a little bit, when you're in those situations, one thing that I've always found is very beneficial to me is to ask yourself, like when the waitress is not being attentive to you, right? Who am I being and who am I bringing to the table?
Yep.
Because it may be something, it may be an energy that you're putting out, and it may not be, right? But like, again, through mirror neurons, we can, if our state is strong enough, we can change somebody else's. So who am I bringing to the table? Who do I need to be in this situation for them to have a better day, right?
And especially when in her situation where the bartender caught on and was attentive, and the waitress who had the same opportunity dropped the ball. I have no problem that Tina will verify. I talk to wait staff all the time, and I give them tips and whatever I can to try and get them to be better at their job. We went to a little restaurant 3-4 weeks ago, and the guy that waited on us, I'm always watching because, you know, my training and stuff, and I said, why do women always get 2 bev naps under every drink? One directly under the drink, one just off to the side. And he was like, I said, because when the glass sweats, they like to keep their fingers dry. Us guys don't give a shit. We'll wipe it on our pants leg. We don't care. I said, that lady, that grandma over there at the table just got a drink and she's trying to figure out, she didn't even get a bev nap. I said, I guarantee you, you go over there right now, you tell her, sorry, the waitress forgot the bev nap, you put one under, one on the side, you'll blow her mind. He went right over, I'm so sorry. And the look that she gave him and the look that she just kept watching him as he walked back into the place, he came after a bit, and I said, there's so many little details, so many little things that we can constantly get better at. I'm still trying to improve. I sometimes I get a little short, and sometimes when people piss me off, I may or may not use some NLP and some other tactics to let them know. But in the end, you know, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to accomplish? What kind of a mark do you want to leave? And how can we help each other? That's kind of what I wanted this forum to be. I always tell a lot of my clients that, you know, if you can, get into a mastermind group where it's not forward based all the time. Especially I was in one mastermind group for a short time where it was business owners that would get together back in my hometown. And their whole deal was they would get together for lunch on like a Thursday, talk a little bit about what's going on, and then they would go to, all right, so we worked on John's issue last week. John, what'd you get out of that? How'd it go? What'd it turn out? What'd you find out? All right. So Barry, it's your turn. What's going on with your business? How can we help you? What do you need? And if Barry's like, I'm good this week, all right. Scott, what you got? And they would go round table, and as soon as somebody who hadn't been up for a while came up with something, the whole table would mastermind and brainstorm on ways to help them. And so with the collective that we have here, and the theme again, where would you guys like to be in 23, and how can we help thee? Tweedledee. And if nobody has anything, then
Well, I have some.
okay.
That's, I figure I'll go first. Then, yeah, I'm really, there's a couple of things. I've got this book that I sent to the publisher in August, and so I have to be more diligent about following up with the publisher too. But I really want to get that book, which is called the Intuition Manifesto. I want to get that out. I want to get it, circulate. I want people to, it's a short book. It's about 100 pages. It's not a very big book. And it was an intuitive download that I received. And so I really want to promote that book, and I feel that it'll really help quite a few people. So that's the first, I guess, more pressing thing. And it's kind of tied to my PSMO method, which I'm writing a book on the PSMO method, which I'm going to, luckily in the Golden Path class, it was revealed to me that I need to get that patented. So I'm in the process of getting that patented. And I've already spoken to a patent attorney, and now I'm 98% done with, I just have to finish rereading the email, making sure that it flows so I can send it to the patent attorney so he can start the initial stages of applying for a patent. And I've never applied for a patent before, so I don't know if anybody here has any experience with that, but there's a gal named Bonnie at the Golden Path class who, she's an engineer, and she's patented a few things for GE before, and so anyhow, yeah, anything that this collective think tank can bring to help me mastermind, because I haven't really masterminded with anyone about that. I'm just eager to get the paperback in my hot little hands, even though it'll be available on paperback and ebook.
Okay.
I just want to get the paperback in my hot little hands, and then I'll really start promoting it. I've got some little 30-second clips that I've created that I can promote on YouTube and social media. But yeah.
Well, one, you said you had to get back to, you had to follow up with somebody.
Publisher. I'm actually self-publishing, so I'm actually the publisher. This is actually the book printing company that's actually printing the physical copies and then shipping them to me.
And when are you going to do that?
I know, I just have to pick up the phone and call.
Okay. So.
And I've been avoiding, to be honest with you, there's part of me that's avoiding it because it's like, and I don't, as much self-work as I've done, part of me is a little embarrassed about the book. It's like, what if people think the languaging is funny, or because it was just like a direct stream of consciousness.
Yeah. So what's
that I wrote, and I've read it like, I don't know, half a dozen times, and made a lot of corrections and so forth, grammatical, all the grammar and everything is okay, but I know if I were to send it to like a traditional New York Times editor, oh, they would completely have
stop.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was going to say that was a brilliant mind read on somebody you don't know. And even if they poo-poo it because they don't understand it, what's the worst case scenario? Do you die?
No, no, I won't die.
Okay, so then you got the download, and it made enough sense to you to take the time to write it. It's time to get the book out. And you said you're a combination of scared and embarrassed. Okay, what other? Those are two pretty good labels. What else could you call it?
I mean, it's not the first book I've written. The other books I've written, I wrote because people asked me to write them, but I never promoted them, or they weren't. This book is for some reason it's different, and it's a book that I really want to get out there into the world. I really think because it was so divinely, like, inspired. I think there's at least one person out there that it's going to make a huge difference for them.
Okay.
I don't think.
So,
And so,
what are you scared about? What else what other word could you use to describe scared?
Yeah, so I would say from it's like the academician in me. It's like the grammar police,
Okay.
journalists in the family. So it's like, so maybe there's, I think there's, I guess, judgment.
Okay, judgment is one word.
Yeah,
What's another
I guess
word?
judgment. Yeah, I guess judgment about the grammar,
Okay.
perhaps. That would be the biggest thing, would be the judgment about the grammar.
Okay.
Because I don't think I feel and know that the content is good. So it's more, probably more that than anything else.
So if you're already a member of the grammar police,
No, but I'm not the,
Yeah.
I don't think,
no,
Well, maybe I am.
yeah. See, trust me, people who aren't members of the grammar police put out stuff that the grammar police find. I know, because I know somebody who can find mistakes in Webster's dictionary, and they have.
oh, wow.
So, yeah. It's a
Quest for perfection can keep you from doing something really phenomenal. I don't know, I don't know you, Lillian, but if I were in your shoes, I sense you said something that struck a chord with me, which is you've written other books, but they were at the suggestion of other people. This book came from you. So I feel like you might be more vulnerable with this material.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, because the other books were things that I was actively doing in business. So I would teach and train the brokers and agents that worked for me what I was doing, and it was very much all experiential and from my having applied it. So it was just basically a brain dump, but it's all a left brain dump.
Yeah.
So and there's some things that I kind of came up with, but it was really more of a left brain dump. And because they're telling a physical book, and so then I did that. And then this one I wasn't even planning on writing. This one I just literally on a Thursday night, and it was very, very filled with signs, symbols, synchronicity, and a lot of serendipity, but it was not planned at all. So I just literally, like at 10 o'clock at night on a Thursday night, had the passing thought of, I heard you should write a book on intuition. And so as I was walking into my office space, I was like, I should write a book on intuition. I'm like, okay, I know how this goes. I just better write, I'll just write the word intuition on a book template, and I'll come back to it later. So I opened up my book template, I wrote the word intuition, and then the next thing I know, I started to hear all these words. So then I was just trying to keep up with everything that I was hearing. And when I stopped typing, I looked up and I realized it was 8 o'clock in the morning, and I missed the sunrise. So I hadn't slept. I basically it felt like 15, 20 minutes, but it was like constant writing, trying to keep up the entire time. No caps, no periods, just run on words. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So then I read everything that I had written, and I thought, that was like 88 pages, and I thought, that's almost a book. Because another book that I wrote was 125 pages. So I thought, holy cow, I go almost an entire book in one sitting? That's crazy. And so I read the whole thing, and I thought, oh my gosh. I'm like, well, obviously this wanted to come through me, and somebody needs to read this. And I thought, I'm like, okay, this is amazing. So then I just put it away, slept for a couple hours, and then that day, Friday, at 3 o'clock, I had set a month prior, I had set a gal who had been on Shark Tank to be on my show, Love and Money Secrets TV, for my YouTube channel. Little did I know that her entire story was anchored on listening to her intuition. And so as I listened to we did the entire show. And so at the end, I said, oh my gosh, April, and she, her product sold in 5 countries. She made millions. She went from making $9 an hour in 1 year, from $9 an hour at a retail counter to earning $9 million in real estate, from which she actually earned $300,000 in commissions. And so the number 9 had kept on showing up, and the 3, and it was at 3 p.m. And I thought, obviously, there's no way I could have planned this. And I said, obviously, I have to put your story in the book. So I just finished the book this morning, but I'm going to edit the book, and I'm going to add your story to it. So I added that story to the book in its entirety, which I thought, wow, this is more evidence that, so it's a very different book. I've never written a book in that fashion, whereas the other ones it's just based on your business books.
Okay, so
so that's why I feel a little embarrassed.
yeah.
The grammar police.
Guess what? Time to get her done. No, stuff like this doesn't just come out like pop, like you don't throw this away. So, what time tomorrow are you calling the printer?
I will call the printer at 3 o'clock tomorrow.
3 o'clock tomorrow. Okay. Yes, you're going to put that on your schedule.
And so something that I would like to just add in there, Vivian, that you know who else that basically went from writing other books, writing books like this, that basically did them in one sitting and download? Wayne Dyer.
Yep.
You know what?
That's putting you in pretty good company.
Yeah, and I love Wayne Dyer. I didn't realize that they were all downloads, though.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So.
There were plenty of stories of him just going into his little hideaway and going, I got to write something. I can feel it coming on. I will get a hold of you guys when I'm done. They're like, what are you writing about? He goes, I don't know. I can feel something is coming down. And he would sit down and do just like you said, and it was a full-on brain dump as fast as he could type. And he didn't use a computer; he was typing on an old-fashioned typewriter with paper.
Yeah, it's a feeling. It's not. It doesn't come from your left brain at all. So it's.
And his publisher I think his publisher might have been fired because his publisher didn't want him writing those kind of books because that wasn't what he was known for when he started.
I didn't know that. Wow.
So.
Wow. 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 I didn't know that. Oh my God. Interesting. Okay.
So did that inspire you a little bit if you're following in those footsteps?
Yeah, it's funny because I actually interviewed Wayne Dyer's daughter, Serena. I should probably give her a call and talk to her about that because, wow, I didn't know that. I don't know how I could possibly have missed that, but that's interesting about Wayne.
So, here we have a
I'm a little embarrassed though, which bothers me because
Okay.
I'm like forever.
what other
been like,
what other
oh,
word can you use other than embarrassed? What other word can you use other than embarrassed? Because that's a pretty strong label.
Yeah. Yeah, embarrassed is really the. And what's funny is that for a lot of stuff since 2019, it's like I don't really care about what anybody like thinks or says or talks about me. But for some reason, I don't know, something about having it in book form.
So what's another word that you could use when you think about that, who you've become since 2019, where you care a little bit less of what people have to say? You've got this book. I want 3 other words. 3,
So 3 other words that what?
other than embarrassed. Because that's a pretty strong label that you've attached to it.
So, so embarrassed, burdened, criticized,
One more.
embarrassed, burdened, criticized, badgered.
Yeah, now step back and look at those 4 words. What do you notice?
You don't feel good.
Yeah. And why are you doing that to yourself? What's the worst case scenario? What are you so worried about?
I mean, the worst case scenario is that nothing happens.
There, exactly. And you survive.
Oh yeah.
So,
Have this.
but if one person gets a hold of that book and it changes their life forever, kind of changes what those 4 words mean, doesn't it?
Yeah, it pulverizes them actually.
Yeah, exactly. Stop focusing on what it might not do to you or for you, and focus on what it may do for somebody else.
Which is the whole point all along.
Yes,
Wow.
you're welcome.
Wow. Thank you. Wow. I'm kind of surprised to hear myself say that I was embarrassed, actually. I didn't know that was in there.
That's why I had to point out labels. Nothing means nothing until you give it a label. And too many people pop a label onto something right away, and they stick with it. And they don't even analyze the power or what it meant. And oftentimes when I ask them to define what that label means to them and make them relabel it 3 times, you get to witness firsthand what happens.
Wow.
So tomorrow at 3, you call your printer, and you're going to get that book out as fast as possible so that you can change somebody's life who's been frickin' waiting for it their entire life.
And I have people who keep on messaging me, asking me, it's like, is your book available
There,
yet?
see?
I want to buy.
Okay, so, all right.
Wow. So, okay. I finally will put it on my calendar to call tomorrow. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. I will call
Okay.
them.
Well,
Wow.
welcome to Triple T.
Wow.
I'm humbled and blessed by you all. Each one of you
Oh.
has helped me in ways that you probably don't even know. So, in 23, I want to be even more of a help to all of you. And
Right.
I want to get my trainings going, because I've come up with some new protocols. But my trainings, I've decided I'm going to do them a little differently. I'm going to have at least one guest teacher at each one of my trainings, because I don't want it to be the TJ Dog and Pony show and all about me, because I've learned so much from so many people, and we all have our own specialties. Like, I know Holly's going to get out of her, I'm calling her on the table right now. She's going to be teaching mudra at one of the classes. Bernie
Dash.
has a couple of protocols that he's shared with me that he is going to be coming up and teaching.
As soon as I get done with this boat,
Yeah. So
ready to go.
that's where I'm pointing my ship. And we got lots of projects here on the Texas front. So, but I also see a lot of people here that are looking at some big business changes and stuff in 23. And I would like this to be a brainstorm platform to help everybody. So don't be afraid to speak up. Otherwise, I'll speak up for you. And you guys are here to also hold me accountable. I've got at least one book, well, 2 books that I have to get done. I've got everything up here, but it's really hard for y'all to read it up here. I gotta get it in print. So maybe I need to do one of those all-night typey type things. Actually, I've decided that it'd probably be easier for me to set up the camera and just tell the story.
Dictate it.
Yep, and then
There's a thing I use quite a bit. It's called, what is it, Descript?
Descript.
You guys ever played with Descript?
I've not heard.
It's made for video software, but it writes everything you say into the video, it writes down. And then you can actually go in below and you can edit your writing, and it edits the video along with your writing. It's super fun to play with. It gets all the ums and hahs and stupid shit you say out of your thing, and you don't have to record it 17 times to get it right if you're not a professional, which I'm far from.
Would you type the name of that into the chat, please?
Yeah, let me open a chat. It's called Descript. I think it's called Descript. I should probably make sure before I type anything.
Yeah, go ahead, send us on a little goose chase. We'll figure it out.
Send you on a goose chase.
If you want to transcribe just a video or just audio that you do on your computer, rev.com does it for $1 a minute. I've used that service, and depending on the level of how accurate you want it, you can pay a little bit more, and then they'll edit it so that it's tighter. but that's pretty good. I've used that.
I'll only send you 50 cents, but,
I'm sorry?
a word, 50 cents a word. I can type as fast as he can talk.
Yeah. So, but yeah, but if you can just sit down and just what you're thinking and what you're feeling, just go in a stream of consciousness. I mean, you don't feel the time, and it's surprising. I think you'll surprise yourself.
Well, I've certainly gotten much better at typing since instant message came about. But in high school, typing was the only class that, thank God, there were only 4 quarters, because I went from an A to a B to a C to a D, and if there had been a 5th, I probably would have been an F. So, yeah. Not my strong suit. Luckily, I've got a few other things that can keep me afloat other than typing. Otherwise, I would be in trouble. But that's why we have technology and we have people with talents that can do that type of stuff. So,
Well, anything we can do to help you. You've got my number and everybody's number on this call.
Yeah. I do a lot of stuff old school because I'm terrible with technology, which is something I need to, that's one of my main goals to overcome this year, since I'm going to have to use technology to move forward. So I'm learning, I'm figuring it out, but it's still a little struggle here and there. It's not quite the same as building race cars or working on boats or building piers. It's a little bit different to sit in front of a computer all day long. But I write, like, I will get to a point where my mind will come up with so much stuff that, like, I almost can't function. And I have multiple notebooks. And so what I will do is I have one set of notebooks that are just first drafts for stuff. Whether it's something to use in a session or something that I want to use in, like, advertising or promoting my stuff or whatever it happens to be, I'll have, like, first drafts. And my first draft is just, like, get everything out on paper. And then whenever I get time, I'll go back to it, I'll reread it, and I have another set of notebooks for my second drafts. But I actually really enjoy the process, especially if it's something that, like, I want to build into one of my meditation programs or something that I want to use in a session. Writing it out by hand is way different for me than typing or talking, or there's something that happens when you physically write stuff down in your, the way that the brain processes it. It's much different than anything else that I've done.
Yep.
So I don't know. That works for me. Like, my kitchen table has like 40 notebooks on it. People think I'm insane when they come into my house, but you know what? That's their problem, not mine. And I have my system and it works for me. But yeah, sometimes I just get to the point where I just have to stop. And sometimes I'll write for 15 minutes. Sometimes I'll write for 4 hours and my hand starts cramping up and it hurts. And I'm like, holy shit, how much more is coming out?
So you might want to also do note cards, because I buy like 5 or 100 index card, and then I'll just write concepts and so forth down as I have, like, things that occur to me. Because I have composition notebook after, like, I don't know how many of them, but I'm not good about going back to the composition notebooks, even though I have indexes on the back page, blah, blah, blah. But the note cards, I find that I can go flip through them really quickly. And then it's like, okay, I have either ideas for videos, or it's like a certain meditation or a hypnosis or something. And the note cards, it's like, okay, you just kind of can shuffle through them a lot faster.
that brings me to another question that I had for the collective for my classes. I've been going back and forth between actually having workbooks or simply buying journals in bulk, just little journals, and handing them out to people, because I've got, you can imagine how many workbooks I have now.
Oh my gosh.
And I haven't really gone back through them, but my journals, I go back through them, and they're all the stuff that hit me regardless of the training. I can have a 300-page workbook for a training and have 30 pages of notes in a journal, and I'll get more out of the 30 pages than I will out of that 300-page workbook. But I figured if I can get a cool little journal. You can buy stuff like that everywhere, and just have the name of the training and the date, and maybe one or two little pages inside that for some highlights to keep me on track mainly. That was one of my ideas for my trainings.
Actually, that's probably not a bad idea. Like, so if you have a headline or something you're talking about, and then give people a chance to write down how this is occurring for them in particular. Because one of the things that it's doing is their neurology is creating whatever it is they're teaching, and it's embedding it in, right?
Well, it was what Bernie had said, that one of my protocols for my clientele is I make them get a journal, especially those that are looking for relationships. And the first thing I do is I tell them, write down that you're not going to date anybody for 1 year. That's the one that gets the most pushback, the most, oh my God, what? I came to you to find a person and you're telling me now I can't date for a year, holy shit, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yes.
Forget about it.
Write the date down, and then I want you to write a list of everything that you can describe of your person as though you've known him intimately for 5 years. And a lot of, I've already done that. Okay, start a new one. Because the one that you did, something didn't quite click, and what you're going to find out is things have changed since then.
Yeah.
But I said, I don't care if you can type 900 words a second. I want it written down by hand, and I want you to keep going through that list every now and then, because what you're going to find out is you'll be reading through those checkpoints, and something will be like, and he drives a Lexus, and you'll be like, no, he doesn't. He actually drives an Explorer. And you write in, and I've had clients now, I've got some really cool success stories where they're just like, holy shit, I've been dating the same asshole in a different meat suit for most of my life. And when you said no dating for a year, I was like, this guy's batshit crazy. This is gonna suck. And in that energy shift, what I tell them is, it's not that you're not going to go out and do things. In fact, I need you, and I'm going to tell you, you need to get out more than ever. Go out with guys, girls, groups, especially groups, and do as many crazy ass things that you ever thought you might want to do, even that much. Because this is a year of exploration. And you need to be the absolute youest you that you can be. Without apology. Even around the people that you've been around for a long time, that have boxed you in because they know who you are. You suddenly start acting differently, and you start being the person that you really want to be, and they're like, what's with the why you did it? Because that's who I am now. I'm not the same person I was yesterday. Thanks for reminding me. But you start becoming exactly who you want to be, because you'll never attract that person that you're supposed to be with if you keep being the old person. That's why you ended up dating all the jerks before. And every now and then, I'm like, if they really push back, I'm like, relax. Chances are you're not going to make it a whole year anyway. I didn't. But I got a pretty good payoff. But in doing that, a lot of the protocols that I've come up with that I'm going to be teaching, that a lot of you have seen, were metaphors that were downloaded that I needed to help myself change. The garden. And I can share with you guys, because a couple of you have heard the story of the one client that I had that the garden absolutely changed her big time, was the one from Europe who was brutally raped at 17 and left for dead. That bad. Took her virginity, gave her herpes. When she came to me, she was 38. Lonely, suicidal, PTSD, anxiety. Had some dating issues. And very attractive. Guys would approach her all the time, and she would bolt and go home, and admitted that she would go home and cry because she was lonely. She was like, he seemed like a nice guy. Why can't? And so I went in, and when I did the garden, when she described the garden from the outside, it was a fortress. When I got her to the inside and asked her to describe the walls, I said, how high are they? She goes, I can't tell. And I'm like, why? Because they go through the clouds. Are there any windows or doors? No. No windows, no doors. If there was a door, because we were able to get in through a door, what would that door look like? Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's a foot thick and it's made of titanium. Describe the interior of the garden. Are there any plants? No, nothing. Barren. She was inside of that structure and couldn't date. And so with regression and reframing, and I had her totally redesign her garden and put it on a nice little hill overlooking the ocean, and planting flowers and trees, and asked her if there was a water feature. And yep, I said, that's all the tears that you've cried. They didn't go to waste. They've been watering this place now. You finally put in the plants. That's why they're doing so well. Nothing went to waste. Is there a place to sit by the pond that you made? Yes. How big is it? Room for 3. Because she wanted to start a family. Day after Christmas, she sent me a picture of her and her husband and their brand new baby boy. Yep.
Wow. That's awesome.
But it wasn't an overnight journey, because I didn't want her to jump straight in. One of the things that I did was, when we reframed it and what happened then, she survived, is I said, now I want you to write down who your person is, but I want you to be open to going out with other guys. The first guy that you're going to go out on a date with is not your husband. Could be, but very doubtful. And if the opportunity for sex comes up, Don't be afraid of it. He's not that guy. And she had the very first orgasm she's ever had at 39.
Wow.
And now she's got a kid. And she's married. That one person made it worth it.
Wow.
And I keep doing it because I can. So get your book done. Get your business going. Get wherever you think you need to go. And whatever you need to do, and whatever you need to do, and let us all help each other. Because that's what I want this to be about. We've all changed people's lives somehow. But together, I think we can help each other change even more. Whoop, whoop.
This has been phenomenal, TJ.
Well, I'm glad you guys were able to make it. I hope to do this consistently. I've got so many different things I want to share, but I don't want these to turn into 4-hour, 6-hour rants because we still have lives. So, do Tuesdays work for you guys? Because I tried to pick something where Mondays we're usually burnt out because it's Monday and we're at the start of the week, and so I figured Tuesday might be a good check-in for the night.
Yeah, this time I'm not usually going to be available until I'm done with the boat.
Yeah.
But hopefully I'm done with the boat by the end. I don't know.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
I don't know. It's a disaster, but it is what it is.
There are certain jobs that,
Hopefully by the end of February, I'm hoping. So much for being done by Christmas.
yeah.
Getting close. So,
No, I was not even close. I'm doubling the time of this job. I started at the beginning of November.
Yeah.
wow.
But I've had a lot of problems dealing with the Coast Guard and the new general managers of the company, and nobody wants to make decisions, and here we stand.
Oh my gosh.
They're not my decisions to make. I'm just a worker.
Yeah.
Wow.
So until I can get somebody to make decisions, I'm kind of stuck.
Well, there are worse places and worse things to be stuck in. So as long as they pay you,
Yeah, I'm still. Yeah, I still bill them by the hour. So you know, the longer they want to wait, the more. I mean, yeah, we're gonna double the cost of the job here pretty soon.
Yeah.
But
and just document
it's okay with me.
document all the indecision bullshit that was going on, so when they start reflecting back and looking at the cost of the project and shat themselves, you can be like, yo, here's where we started in November, and then this came up, and then you decided that you couldn't figure out which left or right, so then we went to December, and then left or right turned it up and down and backwards and forwards, and we're still fucking sitting here. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it looks like I'm about to submit. I talked to the Coast Guard finally a little bit today. It looks like I'm about to submit a secondary proposal to them for the next part of the project that needs to be done with all of the other damage that I uncovered. So,
Yay!
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a project.
Oh, it is. I cut a big hole in a. It's called the MS Dixie. It's like the main like cruise boat that goes out on Lake Tahoe. They do like
Ooh.
dinner tours, and they run. That boat makes so much ridiculous amount of money. I don't know why they won't just fix it. If it was my boat, I'd fix it. It makes them like $20 million a year.
You should just pull the trigger and just get it done.
That's where I'm at. I was like, dude, if this was my boat, like we'd already be done with it. But it's not my boat. You guys need to make a decision. Like, you know,
I appreciate.
Well, you can bet it. You can bet
the
if
little
you
bit,
run
the
it
little
for
bit of
11.
money I'm charging you, you guys make in a day. So why not just? Why don't we just do this and get it done with and move forward.
They want to wait for the weather to get better, and then it can be a rush, an emergency. You gotta get it done now so we can use it.
No, it's just absolute lack of communication, and nobody will just take control of the situation. I have a brand new general manager that came from one of the ski resorts. So he knows nothing about boats or dealing with the Coast Guard or anything that's going on. Like, he's used to watching lists going up and down. And I'm like, this is a little bit different. Yeah. Like, we have to get this certified by the Coast Guard so you guys can take this boat back out on the lake. I don't know. I don't know what part about that's so tough.
I could teach them how to put together a RACI chart to define who is responsible for what, and they could make their decision making more effective.
You know, Tina, I bet that would be more difficult for you than you think it would actually be.
I
know how good you are at what you do, but you've never worked with Zephyr Cove before. It is a very special anomaly.
I work with a colleague who is on a city council up in that area, and he's told me some stories.
When
And he might have been public works director in trucking for a while as well. So
Yeah. Yep. Nice.
Bureaucracy and lack of productivity.
we kind of had to deal with a little bit of that. I had to go attend a meeting for something we're dealing with, and the metaphor I came up with, I went, you know, guys, this isn't so much that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. This is more like the left pinky doesn't understand how to talk to the pancreas because the left ear is still waiting for the kidney to figure out what the hell's going on. And your right toe is still trying to figure out what fucking year it is. And we need to get this done yesterday. And you're waiting on individual hairs to get their shit together? Really? And they're like, whoa. I'm like, no, seriously. How do we set the whole body down and go, huh! We need to go from here over to here. Just a saying. So,
Oh, Lillian, I was going to mention something to you earlier when you were talking about patenting stuff. You might talk to, I don't know, I've dealt with multiple different types of patent attorneys. Some of them are good and some of them are not super good.
Okay.
You might, for doing process stuff, you might see if you can find somebody to talk to see if it's more beneficial for you to trademark it than to patent it.
or copyright it, all the above.
Or copyright it instead of patenting it. Because I've done some patenting stuff. The problem with patenting stuff is that it takes such a small change
Yes.
for them to do exactly what you're doing and be outside of your patent,
Yep.
that doing the patent may not be worth the money. So you might look more into the trademarking and copywriting side of it than the actual patenting of it.
And in getting it published and trademarked, that puts your date stamp on it right away. So if, you know, like with some of the stuff that David did, he has reference to the videos that he created to trademark what he does. That's why I have to be very careful about when I do my trainings, how I reference and what process I use.
Well, another thing you can do, I learned this many, many, many years ago. A guy that probably real world, like smarts, one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. He did tons and tons and tons of patenting and stuff. He still owns like 20 something patents on all the different arms and grabbers on garbage trucks that dump garbage. That was his thing back in the day. But one of the things you could do, I don't know what the actual name for it is, but he always called it a poor man's patent.
Oh, yeah. That's, like a poor man's copyright. I'm familiar with that.
You know how to do that?
Yeah, I know how to do that. And I actually got the name of this patent attorney because I sit on the executive founding board of Settleware Electronic Signing Services. It was before DocuSign and all of that. So anyhow, so I just got their patent attorney. and spoke to him right after, like a day after Golden Path finished. And so, but I'll probably give you a call and maybe talk to you since you have more experience.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have a lot of experience, but I've done a bit with it, and I know, like, in what I know, patents work really good if you're creating a physical thing.
Yeah.
And there's not many directions that thing can be modified or changed.
Yeah.
But if you're creating, when you're doing more conceptual stuff, like I said, the trademarking and copywriting might be more beneficial for you to actually protect what you're doing.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check. I'll look into that. Copywriting and trademarking, that was kind of a given. I just never thought of patenting it until it was brought to my attention, like I said, at the Golden Path.
Yeah, and so for the money that you small slight change in something to be considered outside of the patent.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if they do what you do exactly word for word, then you could call them on a patent infringement.
And then
But if they just change just a little tiny bit, you're not going to be able to call them on a patent infringement. The other thing is when you patent something, all a patent protects you from is somebody else producing and making money off of your product.
Yeah.
And so people can use it as much as they like. People have, people can, take your thing and they can use it and they can do whatever they want to with it. And anyone that anybody that does anything with it, if it's under a patent, the only thing you can do is send them a cease and desist order. And then if from the cease and desist order, if they refuse to stop, then you can go after them further than that. But following like the rules and patents on enforcement is a little bit, like I said, I don't know how useful it would be for you in on something like that. I mean, I'm not a patent attorney by any means, but with what I've done and what I know about patents, they can be good for physical things.
Digital products.
But, as a digital product, as a book, as a thought, as that kind of a stuff, I don't know that the patent is really going to be useful for the money that it's going to cost you. So, worth looking into from what I understand about it.
Well,
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Sure.
again, this is why we do the masterminding and try and get as many brains together as possible. I'm happily impressed with the brains that we've assembled here tonight. And as such, we've gone almost 2 hours. Like I said, I don't want to get these to run on too long. You guys know how to get a hold of each other. So thanks for showing up to the very first Triple T of 22. I'm happy that you're here. Great smiles. I wish all of you guys the very best. And I will do, again, anything I can to help you move forward to the life that you all deserve, because you are worth it.
And I'll do the same too for everybody.
Yes, likewise. Ditto.
So you guys
I'm here to help.
have a wonderful night, and I will talk to you again soonly, and I'm planning on doing this in 7, so hopefully you guys will be able to make it.
Super. Okay, so the next one will be next Tuesday? Okay. All righty. Thank you, Thank you, everybody, for showing up here tonight. Appreciate
Bye.
you all.
See you guys.
See you guys.
Thank you, everyone.